WABC TV, New York.
This is Eyewitness News with Larry Kane and the Eyewitness News Team. Thursday, July 14th, 1977.
Good evening, I'm Larry Kane. Our big story on Eyewitness News is the live picture you see directly behind me. Suddenly light and brightness out of a 24-hour darkness. The bright patchwork of the second night of the great New York energy crisis of 1977. At this moment, more than 90% of the electrical power has been restored in greater New York. ConEd hopes for full restoration by midnight tonight, but thousands are still without power. Eyewitness News has been told that 12,000 police are on the street compared to the normal 2,500. By 9:30, over 3,000 people had been arrested for looting and disorderly conduct. 250 state troopers are in the city for traffic control. One policeman has been shot and wounded. 87 suffered other injuries. There have been 40 firemen injured in 650 fires. There is 65% of the service on the subways right now. No more is expected for the morning rush hour. There's trouble on the tracks at Amtrak, no trouble at Conrail. We are standing by for reports from the members of the Eyewitness News team at various locations, and right now Peter Bannon is standing by live on 5th Avenue. Peter, what's going on?
Larry, we are down in the Village, and I am very pleased to report that at about 10:20, the last of the lights down here, starting with 15th Street, pow, pow, down the blocks, are going on. If they haven't got all the way south to you folks, they're coming. I think ConEd is going to make that deadline. And the city, at least down here, feels normal again. People are racing through the lights like they weren't doing last night when there were no lights. People are out on the street walking. Are you glad it's over?
Yes, yes, sure. It's not really over for us. We're still waiting for water. All we want is a shower.
I have water. I'm waiting for air conditioning.
Could you have done it 2 more days?
No.
1 more day?
No. Maybe.
Too atrocious. Should have made it.
And one man who deserves special mention was studying for his bar exam by candlelight.
That's right. I felt like Abe Lincoln, and I hope it was worthwhile. Also, I have a baby, not this, 2-month-old baby, and we had to sterilize one pot of water over and over again, and we won't have water in the building for another 3 hours, so hopefully our formula held out.
Okay, hopefully it is about over, and the worst for most of us are stories to tell our children.
Peter, what was the scene like on the way down to Greenwich Village in Midtown and the other sections of Manhattan?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Larry. I was getting scared. I was tired of listening to those alarms going off at every corner, wondering who people were running up and down streets. I was tired. People were hanging out the windows up here, and when the lights came on, they cheered. They honked their horns, and they gave this amazing call, "We've got our lights." We take an awful lot for granted in this city. We need an awful lot.
Okay, Peter Bannon reporting live from Greenwich Village. The state of New York has taken an action that is certainly a first, at least in recent memory. 250 state troopers are in New York City to supplement the city highway patrol, and Eyewitness News reporter Spencer Christian was in the Bronx to greet them. Spence?
Well, Larry, while most of us are certainly hoping for a calm, peaceful night, state and local police are preparing themselves for any disturbances that may occur. 150 state troopers arrived at the 1st District Highway Patrol Office in the Bronx this afternoon to join city police in trying to keep the peace tonight. This is the first time in the memory of the officers we talked to that state policemen have been placed on duty in New York City.
To it now because of the state police taking over our obligations on the limited access highways.
Do you foresee any need for the state police to go into the streets at all?
The only arrangement that's been made is that we would have the state police enable us to use our highway patrols on street. What will happen later on, we can't foretell.
How long a shift do you plan to have them on?
Well, it'll be a 12-hour shift. We'll run until the highway patrol can take over again in the morning, and if necessary, we'll be back tomorrow night.
Who will make the determination as to when your services may no longer be needed?
The superintendent of state police.
Major Leary concedes that his troopers are not very familiar with the streets of New York, but he does not believe they will be needed there. Police officials feel that any problems in the streets can be handled by regular city cops and the highway patrol.
You have both your own radio equipment as well as radio equipment we've furnished. So if there is any problem, get on the air with it. We'll obtain information for you to overcome any problems that may occur, advice or assistance as you may need it.
A highway patrolman told us that there will probably be at least 5 highway patrol cars in each borough at all times. The highest concentration, of course, will be in the most volatile areas of Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Queens. Now, we don't mean, of course, to create any kind of unnecessary sense of urgency. We hope there's no violence in the streets tonight, but at least it's comforting to know that the city is prepared. Larry?
Spencer, ConEd's public relations people are working overtime tonight trying to explain the embarrassing walkout. John Johnson has been listening all day and night to those explanations, especially from the ConEd chief, the chairman of the board, and John has this report.
An act of God outage, lightning, buying too much power from outside sources, low oil pressure. All reasons, according to ConEd Chairman Charles Luce, for the ConEd power system to collapse like dominoes, causing a blackout that was supposedly all but impossible.
And so our system went down with a crash. Now, we've never said that this cannot possibly happen.
Luce was referring to his earlier statements where he said a blackout of this magnitude was all but impossible, calling it an act of God outage this time, while Mayor Beame called it gross negligence.
Mayor Beame, although he's been very critical of us, and I think unfairly to our people, I think that last night he showed real leadership in a crisis situation in bringing this city through this, or helping to bring the city through it. So we have no personal feelings about Mayor Beame, even though we think when he says we were grossly negligent, he's wrong.
Mr. Luce, while you're saying it's an unfair to say that you've been grossly negligent, you are saying here now that you're going to appoint a panel of blue ribbon experts to help you work this out. Now, one might ask, why wasn't this done before?
It was done before.
One other point is that also after the 65 blackout, you were supposed to basically install a shed system, a fail-safe system that was to avert something like this happening. That evidently failed. Was your planning proper?
Well, we planned to shed and had the equipment to shed half the load. As it turned out, the peculiar sequence of events last night, that wasn't sufficient.
And regarding an act of God outage, Mr. Luce, can you say to the citizens of this city now, confronted with we're going to have some hot days and tremendous electrical demands, that we are not going to have another blackout?
I'll say just what I said on the Eyewitness News. Nobody can say that under no circumstances will there be power failures, because power is generated with machines operated by human beings, and there simply is no way.
So there's no way we can have a foolproof system?
There's no way, and there's no country or no utility in the United States or abroad that has an absolutely foolproof system. There's no such thing.
Mr. ConEd has done enough to protect us?
Well, as I said, we're going to restudy the protective devices that we put in. We've already had underway, before this happened, a study and a capital improvement program at the control center to improve the instrumentation at the control center. But I'll say this, that on any statistical comparison of ConEdison with any other utility in the United States, our reliability is the best in the United States.
There will be a lot of people who will argue that point with Mr. Luce, especially those who are still in the dark even at this moment. Luce, however, has promised that the power will be restored by tomorrow. We hope so. Larry.
We have just received late word. Governor Carey has formally asked for federal disaster relief money right away for the hundreds of businessmen, maybe thousands, affected by the effects of the blackout. The governor has been in town all day investigating New York's blackout, and Eyewitness News caught up with him at the heliport. There, he had some pretty optimistic words for the city of New York.
I certainly look for tonight to be a better night than last night, because power is going back on, and we have an adequate source of backup power. And I'm going to take steps tomorrow to meet with all of the officials involved of ConEd, of the Public Service Commission, to make certain for myself, on behalf of the people of the state and the mayor and others, that this is not going to happen again.
Governor Carey told Eyewitness News he plans to stay in the city of New York at least through the night. Mayor Beame is very busy. He's appealing to religious leaders of all faiths to ride with police patrols tonight to keep their communities peaceful, calm, and relaxed.
Earlier
Earlier, the mayor told a City Hall news conference of his anger and outrage over the blackout and the rampage of looting that swept parts of the city. Beame is going to appoint a blue ribbon panel to investigate the massive power failure.
I want to express first my total outrage that at this hour, the city of New York is still without power, and the prospects for restoration of full electrical service remain vague as far as Con Ed is concerned. And given what occurred 12 years ago, Con Ed's performance is at the very least gross negligence, and at the worst far more serious. We've seen our citizens subjected to violence, vandalism, theft, and discomfort. The blackout has threatened our safety and has seriously impacted our economy. We've been needlessly subjected to a night of terror in many communities that have been wantonly looted and burned.
Tonight, the mayor says he wants convicted looters punished to the fullest extent of the law. Oh, the cost of human suffering and inconvenience can never be measured, but the cost in dollars can. City Hall officials say that losses will run into hundreds of millions of dollars due to losses to business, city taxes, and overtime for police and firefighters. While the Transit Authority is struggling to get its trains back in service, Eyewitness News finds it's getting off to a pretty shaky start. This evening, we checked the 59th Street Columbus Circle stop and found few people waiting for trains. Ironically, there were more people waiting for Brooklyn-bound trains that were not yet running southbound to Brooklyn.
Started off at 110th Street, and just as the train was pulling up there, I waited about 20 minutes for the train there. Just as it was pulling up, the guy in the token booth said that it was only going to 96th Street, but it kept going down to 59th Street, so I stayed on the train, and I assume it kept going down from there. Well, I was with the first group of people who came here, and then the A train came, and it's been here for about 15 minutes.
Oh, there's about 7 to 10 minutes, between 7 to 10 minutes. There are a lot of locals running. They want other trains, though. They want to get to Brooklyn.
And so the straightening out of the city subway mess goes on, and Friday morning riders tomorrow morning can only hope for the best. Well, tonight, the entire city of New York is really trying desperately to get back on its feet for the morning rush hour, which begins about 6 a.m. in the morning here. Subway riders may have a wait in the morning, with only 65% of the services running so far. Conrail expects no delays. Amtrak only minor delays into Penn Station, and no Amtrak trains going into Grand Central tomorrow. All PATH trains are on schedule. The Long Island Railroad expects to have at least 80% of its services running. Buses will be on schedule. Kennedy and LaGuardia are running with no delays at this hour. And in case of serious emergencies, the mayor's office has released these phone numbers, and they're important. If you're an elderly person and are unable to get the proper care, or if you need food or medicine or any kind of aid, call this number, 431-4680. And the following numbers are for those of you who need or have questions about health care during this emergency: 964-0814, 962-0951. Businesses may report losses resulting from the blackout. Call the emergency number 233-2121. It'll be open Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for those of you who want the latest information about city conditions, traffic parking rule suspensions, and more. Call this number, 999-1234. What should be thrown out and what should be kept. Here are some basic guidelines for the food in your refrigerator tonight. It takes about 24 powerless hours before things defrost completely. If the meat was still partially frozen when the power returned, just leave it in the freezer. Anything warm to the touch should be cooked thoroughly as soon as possible or thrown out. Frozen vegetables can be refrozen without danger. Defrosted or uncooked meats can be left in the refrigerator a day or two before cooking. Mayonnaise in the jar doesn't spoil rapidly, but if it's used as a dressing on tuna fish or anything else, it does spoil quickly. Although we can't bring your spoiled food back to life, Storm Field can help us better understand the sequence of events that led to the blackout of 1977 that continues tonight in many areas. Storm?
Larry, the effects of last night's thunderstorms north of New York City were far more serious than anyone had anticipated. Now, if you look at this map, you'll see that the heaviest area of showers and lightning fell about 35 to 70 miles north of the city, north of us. What is now believed to have happened is that first lightning struck a power station, a substation here in Buchanan. That's New York and Upper Westchester County. It knocked out the transformer here. Then 3 to 6 minutes later, lightning struck the power line between Pleasant Valley and Millwood in Westchester. Now, that lightning strike strike overloaded this important power line and succeeded in shutting down the Pleasant Valley substation. And these two power stations, Pleasant Valley and Buchanan substation, supply somewhere between 20 to 40% of New York's electricity. And the heavy demand on utilities yesterday, with this almost instantaneous loss, caused a cascading overload effect on all other substations and power generators. Now, if we look at this second group here, you'll see that Indian Point number 3 sends out about 900 million watts. When this system went out, the engineers down here at ConEdison's Master Control Center in Manhattan tried to cover this loss, first by cutting out their system's need for power by 5% and then by 8%. But the rapid failure in the power line feeding from Pleasant Valley further north caused the remaining systems in this area to overload. Their safety devices then shut down. Now, the Ravenwood plant in Queens went out here, and when that did, New York City was plunged into darkness. Now, if we look over here, you have to try to imagine these dominoes as power stations. The overload happened so quickly. If we can look right over here, you'll notice what happens. So quickly that the power shedding mechanism that they have couldn't respond in time. Now, power shedding means that electricity to certain areas is cut off to lower the demand, and therefore, if something breaks down, the entire system doesn't collapse. Now, just as with this pile of dominoes here, you have to straighten them up one at a time. You can't start from the bottom. So with the power plants, you have to start at the outside border, work your way slowly into the middle, checking out the lines and the stations carefully. And that's probably why right now the process is taking so much time. And so it is even at this late hour. Not all the power has been restored. Larry?
Storm, when Eyewitness News rejoins you tonight, we'll have reports on the unfortunate side, the ugly side of our long, dark night, the looting and the burning. The report's next. This just in, Eyewitness News has learned that 6 inmates have escaped from Rikers Island and are now the subject of a massive police search. The breakout occurred around 10:05 p.m. tonight, and the search is being concentrated on the East River and Harlem River near Rikers Island. 851 fires have been reported since the blackout began. That figure just released Eyewitness News from Fire Department headquarters. 52 of those fires were serious. 2 civilians died in them. The latest to plague the borough of Brooklyn, a factory unoccupied at Stone, Sumner, and Truxton Avenues in Brownsville. It went to 5 alarms before they brought it under control. Only minor injuries there. Arson is the cause. That's what the department tells us. So fierce were the flames, they jumped across the street to neighboring homes. And a Pontiac dealer in the Bronx was nearly driven out of business in last night's massive looting situation. A gang of vandals broke into the Ace Pontiac showroom in the Bronx and drove away 50 cars. They smashed through the glass storefront, ransacked the showroom, then drove 2 cars through the steel doors separating the showroom from the storage area. Witnesses say that hundreds of youths were fighting over the cars by early this morning. And they talked to Eyewitness News about the ugliness that exploded there last night.
They stole 50 cars, and as I spoke to people that witnessed it, people that looked out their windows, they said they didn't believe it. The cars just kept coming through. People were fighting over the cars to get the cars. There were hundreds of people in the place just driving the cars out.
25 of the 50 cars have been recovered, but there's bad news. They are damaged beyond recognition. So far, the theft is estimated at over $250,000. 3 people have been arrested so far in connection with that looting episode. Brooklyn's Bed-Stuy section late tonight reports lights on, lights off, lights on again. Looting in that area has stopped, but fires still burn. And Chi-Chi Williams reports on the scene tonight in Bed-Stuy.
A 12-block section of Broadway in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn was a cloud of smoke and flames most of the day as arsonists set a series of fires. The smoke and flames cleared, the looters could be seen carting off just about anything.
Hey, this is what I got. I'm going to sell this.
We're making as many arrests as we possibly can. It all depends on the situation we're involved in. If we see the people with all the loot, we get it into the station house, we question them as to where they received it, where they've got it. Many people said they found it in the street, which is most likely true in many cases. There's nothing left to steal.
Everything's gone, virtually.
Just about. If it isn't gone, it's in the station house. We have a garage full. We have a few other rooms full of mattresses, various types of clothing, small appliances, but it's all gone.
What's the mood of these looters? Are they violent, or why do you think they're doing this?
Well, the few that I've spoken to, it appears that, well, it was laying there, so I took it. And And that's what they've done. No violence with the looters. If you confront them, bingo, they give it right up. They'll give you the property. They'll tell you they'll find it. In fact, they'll show you where other property has been stored. We've removed that. We've removed everything that we possibly can to the station house.
So basically, they're opportunists.
That's it.
Firemen say fighting the fires was hindered by so many people being in the area.
Yeah, they're a problem, of course. The problem, unfortunately, they interfere with the operation of court, and they're driving the police down there out of their minds trying to keep up with it.
The blackout caused problems for most people in this area, and for some, it brought out the absolute worst part of them. From Bedford-Stuyvesant, Peachy Williams, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Here's the real tragedy of it. Some of New York's poorest neighborhoods were hardest hit by the looting and the rampage, and Milton Lewis reports from the South Bronx, where some people went on a rampage last night.
Bronx were too angry to go on camera to sound off this morning after rounding up slews of looters and arsonists. About 50 people, mostly young men, were squatting in the muster room of the 40th precinct. "Oh, these are some of the suspects," I inquired of one of the cops guarding them. "Hell no," he snapped, having just stepped out of his radio car, its rear window smashed and its left front tire flat. "They're not suspects," the cops noted acidly. "They're looters, caught in the act. You think any of them will go to jail?" But, and now listen to this, he would not let my Eyewitness News film cameraman, Edgar Price, photograph him on the ground it might violate their constitutional rights. The owners of the wrecked Bronx shops felt beat, disgusted, terrorized. As for the looters, vandals, and arsonists, it was Christmas in July, a fiesta, a carnival, a holiday. They especially enjoyed throwing eggs at me and my crew, which included Harold Lebo and Norman Koppelman. Harold, besides being a good electrician, is an expert wheelman, important on such assignments. For the last 27 years, the couple have been operating a grocery store delicatessen at Prospect and Tremont Avenues. Natives of Poland, they were thrown into Nazi concentration camps during World War II. She in the notorious Auschwitz, and she has a number to prove it. How long were you in Auschwitz?
2 years.
Then Auschwitz, and now this.
Just the feeling like I went out from concentration camp.
The remain was nothing again. So we have to start from the beginning.
There was the shop which rented tuxedos and wedding gowns. After the looters, or animals as cops call them, went through the store, they set it afire. How long have you been in that location?
31 years.
What happens now?
I'm in a state of shock. I can't think that far in advance or anything.
TV and electronic shops of all sorts were special targets, including the sound room on Grand Concourse.
It was like a war scene. There were hundreds and hundreds of wild people breaking windows, grabbing the gates. The police
What were they doing to your shop?
Well, they broke all the windows, and then they were pounding on the gates. Then a car pulled up, a chain hit one of the gates. They ripped the gate down, and I mean, there was just no stopping them.
And were you cleaned out?
I don't think they took one of the telephones, and my carpet is still there, but you'd be hard-pressed to find any sign there that this was ever a stereo store.
A witness to what happened to a liquor store.
They brought a tow truck
in front of the liquor store?
In front of the liquor store, and they pulled it away from the liquor store, and they pulled the gates down from the liquor store when they took everything out.
Cops, for their own protection, were riding 3 and 4 to a sector car. Supermarket burglar alarms were ringing like crazy. Here it is mid-morning, about 10:20 a.m., and looting is still going on at this particular supermarket. The reason? There are no cops here. Yeah, what do we got here?
Oh, I got a tacho. That's right, man. Lo último de muñeco.
Here is a young man who doesn't want his face shown, but he has certain jewelry in his 2 hands. Where did these come from?
I found them on the floor in the corner over there, on 39th Street in the bag.
And you're telling me that with a straight face?
That's right. I'm looking at you, telling a straight face.
But you're smiling a little bit.
Yeah, but I got the smile. You know how that is.
Yeah, but you don't want your face shown.
No, no, no.
What do you figure the value of that is?
Well, give me 300. You can have it all.
What if,
300, you can have it all.
What if I offer you 30?
You never get it.
Unless some agency comes to their assistance, most of these shopkeepers will soon be out of business, since insurance companies long have refused to cover them.
All right.
There's another major story, an international one, breaking over the last 24 hours. President Carter reported to the nation today that a U.S. helicopter downed over North Korea apparently lost its way and wandered over North Korean airspace. North Korean gunmen shot and killed 3 of the crew members. The other is reported in an unlisted condition at a North Korean hospital. Carter said his main concern now is not to escalate the crisis into a full-blown confrontation. Our power blackout affected just about everybody, including the people who were paid money to play ball. Here's Sal Marchiano with sports. Sal?
Larry, quite true. Last night when the lights went out, 2 sports events in New York were affected. The Mets and Cubs at Shea Stadium were in the 6th inning of their game. At Madison Square Garden, the Apples were playing a tennis match against the Golden Gators. To the credit of the fans at both events, they left without incident and headed home. The scene at Shea was especially interesting to me. The Mets were losing 2-1 to Chicago when the huge bank of lights that ringed the top of the stadium dimmed and then clicked off. The public address announcer advised the crowd of more than 12,000 to keep cool, and they did, while singing along to tunes played by organist Jane Jarvis. A couple of Mets, Craig Swan and Joel Youngblood, with the permission of manager Joe Torre, drove their cars onto the field from the right field bullpen and left the headlights on. Then Swan and Youngblood invented a new game called Phantom Infield. While illuminated by the headlights, Swan and Youngblood entertained the crowd by faking infield practice with an imaginary ball. There were emergency lights over the exits, and the crowd went home in a good mood. The game was suspended until today, but the Mets canceled the makeup game as well as their regularly scheduled game. The Yanks played in Milwaukee this afternoon and whipped the Brewers 6-3. Reggie Jackson cracked a pair of homers for 3 RBIs. Ed Figueroa won his 9th thanks to Sparky Lyle's 15th save. And Roy White stole home. Rookie George Zeber added a 2-run homer. Tonight, the first-place Boston Red Sox beat Cleveland 7-4 in the 7th. The second-place Orioles lead Texas 6-1, so the Yankees in 3rd place are still a game and a half out. Billy Martin, the American League manager for Tuesday's All-Star game, has added 3 Yanks to the lineup: Thurman Munson, Craig Nettles, and Sparky Lyle. Angels pitcher Nolan Ryan, originally left off by Martin and then selected as a substitute for Frank Tanana because of his arm trouble, is so angry at Billy, he's boycotting the game. He says he's going to spend the time at the beach with his wife. And P.S. ex-Met Tom Seaver pitched a 2-hitter tonight and smacked a home run as Cincinnati beat Atlanta. Larry?
Other parts of the city may have been paralyzed by our 24-hour power failure, but Times Square, the crossroads of the world, had life last night, as Roger Sharp reports.
It's the world's most lit-up street, but the bright lights of Broadway are out. Still, there is life on Times Square, the good and the bad.
Our car is stuck in an
elevated garage, so we're from Jersey.
So we're kind of just waiting.
How's business?
Oh, very good. I can't even handle it.
Offhand, I don't know how many bars there are in New York, but you can be sure this scene is being repeated in most of them. In crisis, very often, new friendships are. Who are you calling?
I'm calling my family to find out how my children are. My 2 little boys.
What are they saying?
And they're sleeping, but the grandmas are taking care of them.
So they don't even know the lights are on?
No, they don't.
They're on television. Roger Sharp.
How are you?
This is really Roger Sharp.
I'm in a show, Bubbling Brown Sugar. And during the show. And it was far out.
Well, I said on Sunday, the president of ConEdison said it wouldn't happen. Really wouldn't happen. Less chance than ever. It
happened. I mean, how could they do this to us?
What do you think happened?
I'm on
a total blackout.
I
mean, the same thing as 1964.
65.
65.
Man and his machines don't work.
But they did the same thing. I mean, it's happening again.
Say hello to your mother.
See, he says hello. Roger Sharp says hello.
Oh, you're up pretty late, aren't you?
Yes.
You having fun?
Yes.
This is the first time at a bar, I'm sure, at almost midnight.
Well, we were going to New York Experience, and this is New York Experience.
Tonight, it's really perfectly fitting that in the middle of this great power blackout of 1977, we begin what we hope will be a long-standing tradition here at Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. We call it simply the New York Moment, a pause from the news, a look at the people in our city who are doing things to help other people. That is a kid that you're going to see out there in the thick of traffic. He's been out there for 12 hours sorting out the chaos because the signal's knocked out. He's Matthew Leibowitz, 15, 10th year at Stuyvesant High. He could be at the beach, but he's getting his tan, working for nothing, so the city will run better. Some motorists curse him out, others give him a passing smile, but Matthew's a tall and courageous young man.
I just came down this morning and saw that cars were starting and stopping in the middle of the street, and so I just thought I might do it. So I enjoy doing it. It gets the city all messed up if it isn't done. Some people just think it's a joke and throw stuff. It didn't really happen that much. You know, one person threw a Kleenex out of the window, but everything it works out pretty good. People take it seriously. Most people. It makes me feel good.
Feeling good, that's what we mean by the New York moment. Well, various memories, bittersweet memories of last night's darkness are still very sharp and clear in focus tonight. During the overnight period, Eyewitness News reporter Joel Siegel walked the sidewalks of New York with photographer Ross Lewis, capturing images of New York City gone dark. This is what he saw.
My cabbie was Lawrence Paster. He was coming up 6th Avenue up from Greenwich Village. There was a man and a woman in the cab, he told me. As soon as the lights went out, they started making out. I live here, Jamie Summers told me, 86th and Amsterdam. Somebody's got to do it. Go, 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 he shouted at a 77 Malibu. Yolanda Gaines and Anthony Fiorillo were trapped inside the island of Dr. Moreau. They never found out if he turned into a werewolf. They didn't seem to care. By 1 o'clock in the morning, the beer was warm at Dazzle's, but so was the crowd. And 42nd Street was a picnic. This fella comes here after work, I was told. He said, I can't get home, I'm camping here. He did. Next to a 6-foot person of indiscernible sex who spoke with a voice simultaneously reminiscent of Marilyn Monroe and Rochester. Lights or no lights, 42nd Street is 42nd Street.
Broadway went dark. At Radio City, they were in the middle of the stage show, in the middle of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf when the lights went out. At the Ethel Barrymore, the second act curtain had just gone up. I Love My Wife. The Grips came out with flashlights and the singing went on, though the lights had gone off. Across Broadway, the 4 guys who played the Beatles in Beatlemania grabbed their acoustic guitars and led the audience in a sing-along. They sang We All Live in a Yellow Submarine until well past midnight.
And Times Square was dark. Times Square was more than dark. Times Square was empty. It read like a bad science fiction movie. The smoke rings were gone from the Winston sign. The gin didn't flow from the Gordon's bottle.
Last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, I met 3 women sitting on this very bench. They were from Moundsville, West Virginia, just south of Wheeling. They'd been on this bench since 10 o'clock at night. They were afraid to leave. They were afraid to go back to their hotel room. They were afraid to walk a half a block down 5th Avenue to use the telephone to call their families back home, tell them they were all right. They told me they were going to stay on this bench till the lights went back on. They probably did.
Grand Central. This woman was waiting for the train to Mamaroneck. She started waiting at 9:15. She was still waiting at 3 a.m. One guy wandered through Grand Central shouting, ice cream, soda, ice cream, soda. Somebody stopped him. He giggled. No, I want ice cream and a soda. I don't got nothing. But time, he might have added. But time. Last night at 9:35, I was editing film. The projector started to run slower and slower, and I asked the editor, can't you do something? He started to fix the fuses when the lights went out, everywhere. And for one horrible moment, I thought it was all my fault. Larry.
Everybody, Joel, has a story about last night except Storm Fields. Storm, who usually has an extremely active social life, did nothing last night. He wandered aimlessly throughout the newsroom till about 5 a.m. in the morning. Here's Storm with the weather. He's been busier today.
I dare not say anything about that, Larry. Okay, let us go right into the weather. Thanks, Larry. Well, we have a very mild evening ahead of us, actually a little bit on the humid side, and tomorrow is going to be a little bit more hot, a little bit more humid. Temperatures again reaching that 90-degree mark, and you can expect that to last probably right on through the weekend, maybe a chance of some showers on Saturday, but all in all, hot days ahead and rather humid weather. So light clothes are in order, and think beach. Let's look at our readings. Right now in Central Park, a very mild 81 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius. The humidity up around 47%. Makes it borderline uncomfortable, just a little bit over that magic 75 number in the comfort index. The barometer 30.10 and holding steady. The winds out of the northwest at 4 miles per hour, not really cooling anything down very much at all. Our high today, 92 degrees, about 7 degrees above the normal high that's expected, about 85. The record high was set in 1954. 100 degrees. Very, very hot then. Air quality today was unhealthy, high ozone levels. Tomorrow will probably be unhealthy one more time. As we look at our map tonight, you'll see exactly why things are going to be hot and muggy and why we'll have sun. This high-pressure system, which usually means dry and fair weather, is slowly going to move out to sea. As it does, we'll switch around from this northwesterly wind into a more southerly wind. And as we get that, along with that will be this warm front moving up out of the south where things were again very muggy. They've had at least 30 days in a row of over 90-degree weather, temperatures throughout this area reaching up close to 100 degrees. That's what's going to be moving into the area around Friday and Saturday. This frontal system behind it will probably move through, and when it does, touch off some showers, maybe some cooling, and it's going to be the same sort of pattern we had just 2 days ago. The exact same thing. Warm front moving through, getting very hot, and then this clearing cold front, which is what brought those thunder showers north of us, that'll be moving through one more time. Doesn't look quite that bad. I have the forecast for you right after this. As I said, one more time, this high-pressure system means bright, sunny skies for us for the next couple of days. As it moves out, we'll get into a southerly flow, and that means this hot, moist, humid, muggy air that's below us will be moving into our area. So it's pretty obvious what the forecast is going to be. Tonight will be clear and a bit warm. Then Friday, partly sunny, hot and humid. Temperatures again getting up into that 90-degree mark. It's going to stay that way on Saturday. Good chance late Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening of a shower moving through the area, then clearing up, partly cloudy and warm, about 90 degrees. A little bit cooler, but still very sunny, and it looks like a great weekend. Again, think beach. My friend Larry?
Okay, Storm, for important rush hour information and updated information on how to get to work tomorrow morning, be sure to watch Eyewitness News during the Good Morning America program right here on Channel 7. And then watch Eyewitness News at 6 tomorrow night with Roger Grimsby and Bill Butel. For the entire Eyewitness News team, I'm Larry Kane. Thanks for being with us, and good night.
This has been a presentation of WABC.